Hey everybody, welcome to Finding Ithaca. And today my dad's gonna read this good story called Rumpelstiltskin. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Rumpelstiltskin, retold and illustrated by Paul O. Zielinski. Once upon a time, there was a poor miller who had a beautiful daughter. On his way to town one day, the miller encountered the king. Wanting to impress him, the miller said, "I have a daughter who knows the art of spinning straw into gold." Now the king had a passion for gold, so he ordered the miller to send his daughter to the castle straight away. When the girl was brought before him, the king led her to a room that was filled with straw, and gave her spools and a spinning wheel, and said, "You may spin all night, but if you don't spin all the straw to gold by morning, you will have to die." With that, he locked the door, and the girl was left inside alone. There sat the poor miller's daughter without the slightest idea of how anyone could spin straw into gold. For the life of her, she didn't know what to do. She grew more and more frightened, and she began to weep. Suddenly, the door sprang open, and a tiny man stepped in. "Good evening, Mistress Miller," he said. "And why are you sobbing?" "Oh," the girl cried, "I must spin all this straw to gold by morning, and I don't know how." "And what will you give me if I spin it for you?" the little man said. "My necklace," answered the girl. The little man took her necklace and sat down to the spinning wheel. He pulled 3 times, whir, 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 and the spool was full of gold thread. He fitted another spool, and again 3 pulls, it too was full. And so it went on until morning, when all the straw was spun and all the spools were full of gold. When the king came at sunrise, he was amazed and delighted, but all the gold just made him greedier. So he led the miller's daughter to a larger room filled with straw, and ordered her to spin this straw too before dawn, if she valued her life. The girl did not know what to do. She began to weep. Once more the door opened, and the little man stepped in. "And what will you give me if I spin straw to gold for you?" he asked. "The ring on my finger," she said. "This will do." He set the spinning wheel whirring. Before the night was over, he'd spun all the straw into gleaming gold. Shortly after sunrise, the king returned. Piles of golden spools glowed in the morning light. The king rejoiced at such a sight, but he was still not satisfied. He led the miller's daughter to a third, even bigger room that was piled high with straw. "Tonight, you must spin all the straw too," ordered the king. "And if you succeed, you shall become my wife, for I could not find a richer wife in all the world." When the king had left, the little man appeared for a third time. "And what will you give me if I spin for you yet once more?" he asked. "I have nothing else," the girl replied. "Then promise me that when you become queen, your first child will belong to me." The miller's daughter gasped. How could she make such a promise? Then she thought, but who knows whether that will ever happen? And she could think of no other way to save herself. So she promised. And that little man once again spun all the straw into gold. When the king came in the morning, he found everything as he had wished. And he married the miller's beautiful daughter, and she became queen. Now a year passed, and the queen brought a handsome baby boy into the world. She scarcely gave a thought to the little man, but one day he suddenly appeared in her room. "Now give me what you promised me," he said. The queen pleaded with the little man. She would give him all the royal treasure if she could just keep her child. But that pleading was in vain. She began to weep so piteously that at last the man was moved. "I will give you 3 days," he said. "If by the end of that time you know my name, you may keep your child." Long into the night the queen sat, through the next day, thinking of all the names she'd ever heard. That evening the little man returned. Beginning with Caspar and Melchior and Balthazar, the queen recited every name she knew. one after another. But to each one the little man replied, "That is not my name." The second day, the queen had inquiries made around the whole town, searching for new names. When the little man returned that evening, she posed the strangest name she'd ever heard: Beastie Ribs and Lego Ram and String Bones. But he would only reply, "That is not my name." Now the queen grew truly frightened, and she sent her most faithful servant into the woods to look for the little man. The servant searched high and low over thickets and clearings and deep into the forest. At last, on the top of a high hill, she found him. He was riding on a cooking spoon around a great fire and crying out, "I brew my beer and bake my loaves, and soon the queen's own son I'll claim. Oh, lucky me, for no one knows that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." The servant made her way back as fast as she could manage, and at midday she reached the castle. You can imagine how glad the queen was when she heard the name. Late that evening, the little man arrived. "Now, Miss Queen," she said, "do you know my name, or will I take the child?" So the queen asked him, "Is your name Will?" "No." "Is your name Phil?" "No," he said. "In that case, is your name Rumpelstiltskin?" "The devil told you that! The devil told you that!" shrieked Rumpelstiltskin, and in a fury he jumped on his cooking spoon and flew right out the window. And he was never heard from again.
Hey you! Yeah, you. Don't forget to like and subscribe right now. I'll catch you next time. Until then, make sure to watch all of our videos.